The shiny red box. My mother was a very organized lady. Everything in its place, and a place for everything. Such a funny but perfect saying, and I never heard anyone else use it. She was into crafts, or nail polish or something. I can't remember clearly, but I remember quite well her little white box drawers full of little pots of shiny colors and brushes and tools with sharp points and things, and a kind of multi-level tray thing with wheels, which she would push around. The house into the living room or garden, and she would sit doing her crafts or nails or whatever it was, bent over with fierce concentration, pushing the sharp pointed things at other things. All her stuff was in nice, neat white boxes with labels, although I couldn't read yet in those days, so I don't know what the labels said. None of that needles and biscuit tin crap. Dad threw it all out after she left. I think. She often gave me my own paper and paints and stuff to create art, as she said while she was doing her thing, and there was one box I was not allowed to touch. This box wasn't white. It was shiny red and had a glittery pattern of golden circles and white stars on it. Later on, thinking back, it could have been like a Christmas biscuit box. Something like that. Anyway, it stood out. It was a different size and shape from the neat white labeled boxes, so obviously I have a very clear memory of reaching out my pudgy hand to pick at it. It was lying on the top tray of her wheelie thing, and her reaching out and grasping my hand just as I felt the thick smoothness of the glittery lid. Nicholas, I told you, we do not touch that box. I looked back up at her. I knew my mother was very beautiful because I heard other people say it all the time. Where's that gorgeous wife of mine? Oh, look at you, honey, like an angel. Absolutely stunning. But at that moment she looked ugly and twisted and terrifying, like the stepmother in Snow White. I gulped, feeling my eyes grow big and my heart beat fast. Oh, Mommy, I whispered. She didn't hurt me. She smiled very sharply. Her lips were very sharp and as red as the red paint. Now remember, you never touch that box, okay? She laughed and her face suddenly looked normal again. Good boy. You want snacks? Or, look at this. I know how to make cotton wool lambs. Do you want to make cotton wool lambs? Do you want to make cotton wool lambs with Mommy? She pulled out some white cotton wool from a white box. Oh, and look at these googly eyes. Aren't they funny? I didn't think the eyes were funny, and I didn't want to make lambs, but I didn't want her to look like the stepmother again. So I nodded and we made lambs. Mine were all crooked and looked crazy, but hers looked like real, actual baby lambs, like we saw at the petting zoo we had visited. She put them all on a shelf and said they were perfect. Sometimes I thought the lambs moved. They never seemed to be in the same position. They were always perfect white. They never became dusty or gray, until Dad threw them out. But then once I saw one of the perfect ones in his room, so he hadn't thrown them all out. Then one morning I came into the living room. The wheelie thing was there, standing in the middle of the perfect neat room, and the red shiny box was lying on top of the white boxes on the top tray, shining very brightly because I think the morning sun must have been lying on it. I walked towards it, reached my hand out and started opening it. It was warm, from the sun, I remember thinking. I could barely make out what was in it. It was full and heavy, something soft, but also very sharp, something hard and white, but also soft and cottony and dry, something still, but also something starred, but also something started to slither. I stared for barely a second. The sun seemed to hit me in the eyes, and I was dazzled and I could barely see anything, and then I heard a croaky whisper, "Oh, Nicholas, what have you done?" Although the whisper hadn't come from behind me, I turned around. My mother was there, looking beautiful but very sad, not at all like stepmother. She came forward slowly and snapped the box closed. I couldn't move, rooted with fear. She cupped my face. "Poor Nicholas," she murmured. "Don't worry. You'll be okay. It will hurt at first, but time will dull the pain." Then she left the room, taking the shiny red box with her. I never saw her again. Police came a lot, and Dad had to leave a while, returned looking gray. I was sent to live with Auntie, which I hated. Auntie was nice and kind and had nice things to eat, but her home was so cluttered, not like our neat, lovely home with all of my mother's neat white boxes, organized perfectly, everything in its place and a place for everything. And we only watched TV there, nothing else to do. The I was sent back to live in our home with Daddy. It had changed a bit, not much, but there was no sign of the wheelie tray thing or any of my mother's stuff. Daddy didn't look very gray more, and he spent a lot of time in his room. I didn't go to his room, not because he told me not to, but because I didn't want to. I heard him talking in his room, and once I accidentally caught sight of him, sitting on their bed which had seemed so huge to me as a child but didn't seem so big anymore. The red shiny box was on his knees. The lid was propped open, and he was looking into it, and a small woolly lamb, which looked alive with shiny googly eyes, was by his side. He must have heard me. He looked up at me, smiled sharply like Mommy used to, and laid a finger on his lips. I moved away, and we never talked about it, and as soon as I could, I moved away from the house and lambs and the box, and never went back.